This year in 2024, I have bought 73 shares of Fidelity's Bitcoin ETF, and I want to make an updated video of how much profit I'm in and how this investment has been doing for me. I also want to touch on what I plan to do with this Bitcoin as it accumulates profit in this bull run, and when I'll probably maybe think about selling or if I have a long-term time horizon on it. So the first thing is just I want to provide a little bit of backstory as to why I decided to buy the Fidelity Bitcoin ETF instead of just buying traditional Bitcoin. I run a crypto YouTube channel. I've been in this space for years. Obviously, I know how to cold storage Bitcoin on a hardware wallet and get it like off of a centralized exchange onto a decentralized exchange or onto a hardware wallet or whatever I want to do with it, right? I understand how crypto works. The reason why I decided to buy the Bitcoin ETF basically is just to diversify my investments and try out a new product. Now, I'm using this Bitcoin ETF more of as a savings account, kind of. I'm putting money in there, money after tax money, because my 401k is with Vanguard. They don't allow Bitcoin ETF. So I'm using some after tax money that I know I want to spend or have available to use in a very liquid state. And so I'm just putting it into the Bitcoin ETF over time, kind of as a savings account. And I'll show you how I have a couple $1,000s in there right now and what I'm doing with it. I'm currently in my mid 20s, and I think that this is a really good strategy for anyone to use. I also have S&P 500 in my 401k and some S&P 500 in after-tax money that I'm also kind of using as just like a savings account to kind of roll with the market. So the reason I decided to essentially buy into the Bitcoin ETF, my backstory as a mid-20-year-old professional who works remotely from his apartment, I decided to buy into this because I know like my money in the S&P 500 is not going to grow as fast as Bitcoin. I know that I want this money to kind of be able to be liquid and sold or traded in a very easy way. So I just went straight through my brokerage to get the Bitcoin ETF instead of porting it to like a centralized exchange, putting Bitcoin on there and then pulling it off and then putting it back on and pulling it off and trading that way, right? So I decided to go with the ETF for one, to test it out, make YouTube content on it. Two, for the simplicity and the fact that it's just right through my brokerage where all my cash is, my savings, my emergency funds, my S&P 500, all that is right there in a package, but also to diversify my investments. So I got crypto in certain wallets, crypto on certain exchanges, and crypto here with Bitcoin ETF. And then I also got a bunch of S&P 500 in my 401k and in my traditional account. So I have this diversified area of investments, and I do think that Bitcoin on a cold storage is probably the safest way to have Bitcoin, no doubt. But I wanted to also diversify into this investment as kind of a savings account. So I put money in there, it's done, it's gotten returns without me doing anything. And I think that's the point of a very easy use of a Bitcoin ETF. My current buy orders for this year that the ETF has been available are 13 shares on February 2nd of Bitcoin at $37.42. I bought 11 shares on February 20th at $45 a share. I bought 11 more shares on February 15th at $45 a share. I bought 8 shares on March 4th at $58 a share. I bought 10 shares on March 18th at $58 a share. And I bought 20 shares recently on April 16th at $54 a share. This puts my current average buy price at $49.79, or around $50 a share. And my current buy price in dollars is about $3,600 total invested. The current profit I have from this investment is about 6 to 7%. I made about $250. And the reason why my profit is so low is because I've been buying up the asset. The whole time it's been rising and kind of in this uptrend. Right now it's kind of scooted back a little bit down to about 50,000 or the 58, 57, 56, 60,000 range. And that has pushed Bitcoin down to like the 49, 50, 52, 55 range. So I doubled down and bought 20 shares in April because of that. But I've just been doing a simple DCA strategy as Bitcoin's going up and as I'm just accumulating more money to save more money in this account. At one point in time, I was up 25% on this investment, and you can see my first buy was 13 shares at $37. If I would have went lump sum, put as much as I could in at $37 a share, I would have almost doubled my money at this point. Maybe it's like a 60% gain or something like that. But with the new asset, with the, I just make money over time. I didn't have as much then. So I've been pivoting money in over time and DCAing into this strategy, not lump summing because I simply just didn't have all of the lump sum, or I wasn't willing to take the risk on all the lump sum immediately. So I do think Bitcoin's kind of cooling off right now. It's a great time for me to DCA if I want to. I think this account sitting at around, almost $4,000 of money invested is a good price to have. If Bitcoin doubles from here, I'll make $4,000 more and it'll be about an $8,000 account. But 100% return is really great on the money, and I think that's a great thing to do with your savings account with just some portion of money. So currently I've invested, a couple times, some in February, some in March, some in April. I have some cash ready to invest in maybe this month in May if I want to into the FBitcoin account. I might just leave it as cash given, some other crypto investments I have. I like to be a little cash heavy. It makes me feel better. So I don't want to just go all in on this for no reason. I might buy some more shares of the FBitcoin in May, maybe do another 20 share buy, get a big chunk of money in there. But right now, my current average buy price is $49. I think the price of FBitcoin today is about $55. So if I keep buying, which I think is okay, if I keep buying, my average buy price will keep raising. It's not bad. I think it's good because I think the future of Bitcoin throughout this year is higher, right? It's $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. And I do think either late this year or sometime next year in the spring, I think we could see that 100,000, 110,000, 120,000 plus Bitcoin. So I don't think it's bad to keep DCAing. I will plan to hold this investment throughout that time, but I wouldn't be surprised to see me DCA a little bit while Bitcoin's kind of trading sideways. Now, the last thing I want to say about this investment is kind of my outlook on it. What do I plan to do with it? Do I plan to keep it for 10 years? Do I plan to sell it? What do I plan to do with this? And currently my thinking is this. I like the Fidelity FBitcoin, but I'm still very, very keen on the Bitcoin halving cycle, having the traditional effects that it has. Currently, we have not seen a scenario where the 4-year cycle for the Bitcoin halving is broken. Because of that, I think maybe depending on how high Bitcoin gets either late this year or early next year, if it really does get to like that 100,000 plus range and I've doubled my investment, I might just go ahead and sell it all. I don't plan on Bitcoin being like a crazy return for me because it's a pretty mature asset in the space. I think over the next 10 years you could buy and hold FBitcoin, and it could be much more like an S&P 500 investment where you get maybe like a higher than S&P 500 investment where you get maybe like 20% returns a year. That would be fantastic. But I'm at the stage in my life where I'm really trying to grow my accounts more, and I do think I have a lot of money into 401ks and into S&P 500, so that money is going to grow at like a 10, 12% return rate, maybe 8% return rate, maybe 5% return rate on a bad year. But I do think that S&P 500 will continue to like keep my retirement intact. I think you can try and do that a little bit better with a Bitcoin ETF long term. But for my specific account, I think what I'll probably, right now my thinking is what I'll plan to do is see where Bitcoin gets late this year, see where it gets early next year, see how I like the technical analysis and the fundamentals of what's happening in the overall Bitcoin space, crypto space, and the overall economy, and decide when I think I want to sell. Right now my current plan is probably late this year or early next year, just sell it all, put it back into cash, and then wait around and see if I need to maybe put it for a down payment on a car, put it for a down payment on a house, or some other larger expense. Kind of my plan with this money is to keep it as like a cash reserve. I don't anticipate Bitcoin dropping to like $10,000 next week or anything, so I think that's an okay assumption to have. But using it as a cash reserve and ultimately getting it back into cash. So as Bitcoin rises, hopefully my investment doubles to around $8,000. I can move it back into cash and decide what I want to do with it then. If next year, late this year or early next year, I decide I don't want to sell it, probably what I'll do then is commit to another 4-year cycle. If I see that like the Bitcoin cycle is continuing to happen, if that happens, I would commit to waiting a little bit, waiting a year, and then DCAing more as Bitcoin goes lower, and hopefully holding out until the next 4-year cycle rolls around. If at any point in time we start to break the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, which I think would be happening because of the Bitcoin ETF inflows or like larger accounts inflowing into this asset, at that point I would probably just sit around and let the asset grow. I would need proof of that, and I don't think I've seen it yet. The big thing I want to say though is that I really think Fidelity FBitcoin is a great thing to put your money in right now. I think that it's just, if you're invested in things like S&P 500 or gold or bonds or anything, I think the Bitcoin ETF is a great competitor to those things. I wouldn't be surprised to see a 20% return year over year over year for the next decade. And I think for younger people like me especially, this is our chance to get like those, not Warren Buffett style gains, but those really long-term solid 10, 15, 20% year over year gains that our parents had, right? Back in the 80s and in the early thousands, that like every decade or every couple decades there's a big asset like this that comes around. It was tech stocks, it was the S&P 500. Now Bitcoin and cryptocurrency could be that asset. So for me, if I was just like, if my 401k allowed it, I would just put all my money into the Bitcoin ETF in my 401k, hold it for like 20 years or whatever, and Bitcoin would probably retire me. Because I'm doing this in an after-tax account, I probably won't have that same sort of mindset. It might change next year. I'll make an updated video when we get around to there if I decide I want to sell or hold. But because of just the way that I'm personally doing this investment, I'm using it more as a cash account to keep my money on pace with inflation, grow my money as we're in this bull market, and then especially as quantitative easing comes around, continue to grow my money some more. So just when I want to buy something like a new car, my car is getting kind of old, or when I want to move into a house or something, I have that extra cash that has doubled or tripled, and I can use it to fund that thing. All right. So that's what I'm doing with the Bitcoin ETF. Got around $3,600 in the ETF. Today it's probably worth around $3,800. Made a little $250 on it. My return does not seem great because I was buying up as the price of it went up, just DCAing and building my position. But I highly anticipate my position to double within the next year. Let me know in the comments if you're buying the Bitcoin ETF, which one are you buying, and what is your strategy? Are you planning to hold this thing for 10, 20 years? Are you going to use it to retire? Or are you buying a different ETF, and why would you do that? Do you think my strategy is sound? Do you think using it as a savings account is a good idea for someone in their mid-20s? Let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to engage and just see what we're doing, all right? Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want Twitter threads, if you're on Twitter and you like to talk about this stuff before I post a video, I post Twitter threads on all this stuff way before I release the video in order to help do my research or share my experiences. So in the description is my Twitter. You can go ahead and follow me down there. I'd be happy to have you talk to me or DM me, all right? Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.